Hello friends. Today I thought I would show you one of my favorite frugal or thrifty books. This book is by Amy. Oh, I'm not going to be able to say her name right. So let's just dive right into this. This is the Complete Tightwad Gazette. And she does give a little bit of caution that tightwads are by nature unconventional. We push the normal limits to make things last longer. Just as kind of a disclaimer, not everything in this book is going to be for you, but it's packed with all kinds of ideas for you to try and hopefully gets the juices flowing, and maybe you come up with some more budget-friendly ideas of your own. This book is actually made up of 3 different books, and these books are actually started with a newsletter called the Tightwad Gazette. So each of the books is kind of a compilation, and you might find something like quilting in one book and then an update to quilting in the other book. So I think it's worthwhile just to kind of thumb through it page by page. That's how I love to go through this book. And what I'm going to show you is just some ideas and articles that caught my eye, and hopefully it gives you a good idea to what these books are about. Here is a recipe for homemade granola. If you're a fan of granola and you're buying it at the store, this recipe is sure going to save you some money. And you are going to find some unconventional ideas, such as squashing your toilet paper roll. A little bit unconventional, but definitely worth a try if that's where some of your money is going. And there's an article on quilts if you are a crafty kind of person. And it even comes up with some really general kind of advice. 3 ways to save. And then what I really love is that it gives practical examples. You know, not just giving you some wisdom, but actually telling you how you can put it into practice. So that is why I really love this book. And if you've never recycled your bags, this little article will surely be an eye-opener, how you can certainly save a little bit of money and the environment at the same time. And there is comics for your amusement. And she even gives you a little bit of a book review of somebody in the past, just to remind you these ideas are not, new ideas. They've been around a while, but she doesn't necessarily let you run out and get this book that she's suggesting, but definitely an interesting book review. And she covers so many different topics, such as kids' clothes and plastic lids. And let's see. Plenty of recipes. And if you're feeling really just daring, homemade crackers. Definitely worth a try at least once. Let's see. And I have tagged a lot of the recipes. I love all the recipes that she gives in these pages. I think food is one of the biggest costs that we have, and I was just so happy to see so many recipes. Easy, simple, and she does list some prices, but be aware this is not a recent book, so these prices might be a little bit outdated, but surely it's enough to give you an idea of how much you could save. And here's a section on chili. And once again, she's listing some prices once again, you have to kind of gauge with the current prices in the market. But just to give you a really good idea on how much you can save by cooking your own, or if you're really gutsy, dumpster diving. Not for everybody, but not all the ideas in this book are for everybody. But hopefully you find a few ideas that work for you and can be helpful. There's a very long section on quilts, which if you're crafty, this is surely a way to save some money. And this is a little bit of a current topic. Diplomas at a discount. Not all this is going to be accurate given the times, but definitely it should give you some ideas how you can save some money. And there's a section on braiding rugs. I have not tried braiding rugs yet, but definitely something to do on my to-do list. And the illustrations are just so fun. I do love the illustrations. Overall, the illustrations are fun, and I just love the variety of the articles. And I'm sure that no matter what you're into or where you want to save your money, you're going to find some ideas in this very thick book. That is, it's the Complete Tightwad Gazette. And it is made up of 3 books. So definitely go and find this book at your cheapest vendor. Amazon has used books as well as eBay's. And thank you for watching. This is a book review of Clara's Kitchen. And if you're brand new to Clara, she's got a YouTube channel. Sadly, she passed away in 2013. But there are so many Depression era recipes and cooking and also history on that YouTube channel. And this is a really great complement to that YouTube channel. And I was just so happy to be able to grab this book. And in the introduction, there are so many wonderful pictures, and there's a little bit of the history of Clara and Clara's family, which is just wonderful. If you've been watching her YouTube channel and hearing a little bit about the story of her life and growing up in the Great Depression, you get a little bit of her history from the YouTube channel. But this book goes a little bit deeper. So if you've been hungry for more of Clara and her history, this is certainly a great book. And there is Clara. And I just love the variety of recipes. There's a recipe for lemonade and for traditional eggplant parmesan. And I love these recipes not only for the history, but also the simplicity of these recipes. If you're on a budget and just trying to figure out how to cut expenses, food is a really great place to do some cutting. Here is fried mushrooms with red sauce. And potatoes and egg sandwich. Quick pickles. And even one for some homemade ketchup. And all of these photographs are just so lovely. I love how many photographs are included in this book. That just that really made my day, seeing all those photographs. I like reading histories, but I also like pictures that go along with them. So I was so happy that they were able to include so many photos. And there's even some recipes for sweets like baked sugar apples. Just in case you're thinking Depression era cooking is all about sacrifice, I think this book really drives it home that it's not just sacrifice. It's using what you have, and really enjoying food. So even some sugar cookies. So I think this book is a really good illustration of how you can cut your costs, even if your budget is near Depression era standards. You can still eat well and enjoy the food that you're eating. So I highly recommend this book. And I hope you enjoy it. Hello friends. Today I'm going to review Meet the Frugal Woods, Achieving Financial Independence Through Simple Living. And if you're looking to retire early, or you're just getting started looking at the FIRE movement, Financially Independence, Retire Early, you might already be familiar with the Frugal Woods. They have a blog. They've been featured on a lot of TV segments. And if you haven't already, I think this is a great book to kind of start you on your journey. First of all, I guess I would like to point out that this book isn't going to be a how-to guide. This is kind of how they did it guide in their journey. Chapter 7, I kind of jumped right ahead. Their first month of extreme frugality. It's really just kind of an eye-opener, asking themselves how much can they spend. How much can they do without? It says, we decided that this most frugal month ever would be a twofold goal: to see how much money we could save, and to test how much sustainable extreme frugality felt to us. Um, I think more than anything, this book is going to be kind of a kind of comparison for you. As you're reading this book, you're going to be thinking about what frugality means to you and how much do you really need to live on. Kind of just, comparing your life to theirs. And that's what I found. It's like, yeah, I can see what they're saying, but how is this going to look for me on my day-to-day life? And I love this little example of how the author had a routine of going to Dunkin' Donuts with her friend Jess. And it's really, really a really good thing to really think about. What is this frugality going to mean to you and the people in your life? She talks about how she didn't want to give up those daily interactions with her work buddy. But they found a way for her to continue with that adventure, and saving $2.50 on the coffee, which wasn't really a great enjoyment for her in the first place. So I love that little example of frugality is going to affect the people in your life, and what is your day-to-day interactions gonna be when you're frugal. Another good example is the author decided to give up wearing makeup. Not an easy choice for her. There was a day when she forgot to put on her makeup, and instead of just going without, she ran to CVS and bought $50 worth of makeup, without just a second thought. And I'm sure a lot of us do this. We, rather than doing without, we just figure out how do we do this thing that we've been doing forever. And then she just kind of had an epiphany. Why didn't I just stop wearing makeup? And I think a lot of us who are trying out frugality are going to come to these kind of eye-opener kind of choices. Why don't I just stop doing this thing? So I love how she brings in some real world examples. And this section actually goes into what is financial independence anyway. Is it just frugality? Is it just giving up stuff? And I like how she really just laid out the elements of her financial independence, which includes 401ks, investments, real estate. And I love how she just kind of lays this out. These are things you probably already know, but I love how she just kind of lays out, this is what we're working with. And she even gives us some step-by-step plan to kind of determine where we are in our own lives, determining your goals, paying off high interest debt. I love how they really kind of let you kind of evaluate your own particular situation and what your goals are. And there's even a section on cars. I would say, except for my rent, a car is one of my most expensive ongoing purchases, ongoing costs. And it's something each of us, if we're going to be frugal, we have to really come to terms with, do we have the need for the car that we have? Maybe we can get along with a less expensive car. Maybe you're even in a situation where you can do without a car. So I love how this book really just kind of triggers questions in the reader's own mind. What do we need? Do we need what we have? Can we do with less? Can we do without? So I love how the writing just really kind of brings it right home. And chapter 16 is about smoothing out the happiness curve. You know, what makes you happy in your own life? Is it vacations? Is it things? And it really just says, you know, these are the things that haven't made us happy, and the things that that the author does enjoy. Rather than living for vacations or weekends, we've created a life that delivers ongoing happiness on a daily basis. So I think that's the biggest question for a lot of us, is what brings us joy? What brings us happiness? Is frugality and retiring early the answer? And this little section really just sums up frugality for me. Frugality has become about far more than saving money, although it's certainly a nice fringe benefit. Alongside my spirituality and my yoga practice, frugality is how I find peace in an uncertain world, and how I ensure I'm living a life I'll be proud of. To me, that just sums up life goals for me. That is really what frugality is. And that is my review and partial reading of Meet the Frugal Woods. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I would love it if you would like and subscribe. This is a book review, Playing with Fire, Financially Independence, Retire Early. And it has included a foreword by Mr. Money Mustache. And what I love, the foreword kind of really sets the stage for what kind of thought process you might be going through when you're thinking about becoming financially independent. This is the foreword by Mr. Money Mustache, and he kind of just describes his way of thinking about, you know, how the cycle of working long hours to accumulate more stuff, it's kind of a trap. That's kind of his way of describing his thought process. And it really just kind of sets the stage for what you're going to find in this book. And from there, the author goes through kind of his thought process, and he goes on to say that at the age of 33, he was introduced to FIRE, which means financially independence, retire early. And it's a growing community of people of all types and income levels. So it's not just for the rich. It can be for wherever you happen to be, as far as your money goes and your lifestyle goes. And the author's wake-up call happened in 2017. And he listened to Mr. Money Mustache for the first time, and it was just kind of an eye-opener for him. And so you're thinking, this is great. I like what I'm hearing. I would like to be financially independent and be debt-free, and maybe you want to live like Mr. Money Mustache, and you want to bike and live as free and carefree as you want. But the question is, what exactly is it? And that's when the author goes into the 4% rule, which is, it talks about the savings that you would need to have and the investments that you would need. And if you withdraw only 4% of your income, that is your ticket to financial independence. And if this concept is really new for you, there's some popular FIRE blogs, and of course Mr. Money Mustache is at the top. There's also the Frugal Woods. choosefi.com. There's plenty of resources to get you going on your journey. And as kind of a starting point, the author really just sat down with his wife and really went through what are the 10 things that I enjoy. And he came up with a list, and his wife came up with a list, and he was really quite amazed how in sync their list was. And you've got a retirement calculator. The big question is, yeah, I know the figures, I know how much I need, but how long is this really going to take? And it depends how much you're able to save. If you can save over 50% of your income, you could be financially independent in 11 years. So that's pretty amazing if you're able to make that kind of dent in your savings. And there is the fear. What if the stock market crashes? What if I lose my job? I love how the author just kind of lays it all on the table. This is possible. Horrible things happen, and nothing is foolproof. And this FIRE way of thinking may not save you from financial ruin, but it's something really to consider. And so you should, consider what are your cushions if the worst were to happen. He says that Social Security is a cushion. So definitely kind of think about what your options are if the worst should happen to you. And one of my very favorite parts about this book is the personal examples. You're going to find examples of real people, and it actually lists their current spending, where they're from. You're going to find a variety of current spending levels from people in big cities and small cities and very different lifestyles. I just really love how he just kind of brings it home and kind of says these are some real people, and definitely gives you a little bit of thought. How would I live with this lifestyle? And I love how some of the average monthly expenses are listed out for you. Just so you have a starting place. I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. It's not just about finances and figures, and these are some stocks that might be helpful, but I think it really brings it down to a ground level to really get you thinking about your own personal situation. And this is another example of somebody from New York. They've got a current spending level much higher than the last example. And I really love the variety that is seen in this book. I think this is just a wonderful starter book. If you're just thinking about retirement and how do I save money, how do I become financially independent, this can really just get you thinking. This is a way of life for some people, and is it possible for you? And it even goes into some investments. This author is a big fan of the Vanguard, so definitely gets you going and can start your research in your investments. And here's another example: Seattle, Washington, a current spending level of $20,000. So I just love how there is a good variety of people and cities, and the spending levels might seem kind of low for some readers, but definitely paints a picture of this is how somebody can live on this amount of money. And at the very end, if you are really sold and want to just start diving in, you've got 7 Steps to Fire. And I love how the author doesn't just leave you hanging with some stories and information. The author really just kind of lays out some groundwork for you to really get going today. So that is my review of Playing with Fire. And I hope you enjoyed this book review. Hello, friends. Today I am reviewing the Foxfire book of Appalachian Cookery. And this is the revised edition. And if you're brand new to this particular series, Foxfire was actually started as a magazine and then became a series of books. And if you're unfamiliar with the history, the introduction is going to be great for you. It talks about the first time the Foxfire book of Appalachian Cookery came out was in the 80s. And they kind of set the stage as to what it was like in the 80s. Microwave cooking was just the biggest deal. And Appalachian Cookery, not really on everybody's wish list. So it kind of sets the stage for the first edition of this book. And it also goes into a little bit of the history of the Foxfire book, which was published in 1972. And it was born out of the Foxfire magazine. So I love that they go into a little bit of the history and give credit where credit's due to the students of the Foxfire program. And immediately what you're going to be thrust into is the time. 1966 is where we're going to start. And I just love all of these old pictures. I love that they didn't try to modernize this book too much. So if you're familiar with the first books that came out, this is just going to really call to attention the times in which they were published. And it goes into fireplace cooking, which was a very traditional way of cooking. And I love that they included that in this book. And you're going to find not only some old photographs, but also some line drawings, which are just lovely. And it includes a few pictures of the actual cooking. So a barrel used for dripping lye when making hominy. And I love how it just kind of, even if you're not going to actually cook exactly maybe how the Appalachians cooked, I love that they just included that as, kind of a historical record. And this is the section on pickles, relishes, chutneys, and sauerkraut. And the sauerkraut is one of my favorite areas here. It says sauerkraut or sauerkraut. I always say sauerkraut. Not sure where that comes from in my history. But it's got a few recipes on pickles and sauerkrauts. And then we get into chicken. And if you're a little bit squeamish, these pictures of butchering chickens might be a little bit too much for you, just to give you a little bit of warning that the pictures do get a little bit graphic. But after you get through those, then you get into the actual cooking that we might be a little more familiar with, such as just cutting up the chickens. And it's got a section on milk and butter. And if you've ever been curious how milk and butter were made before we could just pick up a tub of butter in the store, this is going to be really interesting for you. And even a section on cheese. And it's got a section on herbal tea and herbal tonics. And wild game. I think this is going to be just a section of just pure curiosity for most of us who are just wondering, what did people eat in Appalachia besides just chicken and beef? It has got a section on raccoons with some personal narratives, which it doesn't actually include some recipes that are really specific, but I do love the oral history of the wild game. And then we're going to get into cornbread, and there are just so many dishes with cornmeal, and I'm anxious to make a whole bunch of these recipes. I think cornmeal is just one of the underused foods that we deal with nowadays. And tons of pie recipes. And it's even got a recipe for pie crust. And there's blackberry and gooseberry and pumpkin and sweet potato. So tons and tons of pie recipes for your enjoyment. And the very last section I was really interested in is it lists all of the participants, the students that were involved, as well as the contacts. And I love how they didn't forget the history of the Foxfire books and the original project. So that is my review of the Foxfire Book of Appalachian Cookery.